Good morning, and thank you, Uma, for that kind introduction, and thank you, Andrew, for inviting me to join you today for what I'm sure will be an exciting and stimulating discussion. Not my speech, but the other speakers, I think, look like a very interesting lineup. So I wish I could stay with you longer, but sadly, as ever, the ministerial diary is rather challenging. As you've just said in that kind introduction, I am the Minister for HS2. I also look after other major projects with the Trans-Pennine route upgrade and Northern Powerhouse Rail, and trying to bring all those together at the moment through the integrated rail plan, which the Prime Minister announced back in February. But my kind of interest in construction didn't start with being given this portfolio back in February. It didn't actually start when I was briefly Construction Minister last year. It actually goes back to my childhood, when my grandfather taught me bricklaying and taught me various other skills, which gave me a passion into engineering and kind of major project delivery. So it's a real privilege for me to have been given the role of looking after HS2, which is the largest construction project in Europe and undoubtedly one of the largest construction projects in the world. So it's a great role to have. It's been a very steep learning curve for me, but it's great to be able to engage with stakeholders, and particularly stakeholders in the Midlands, because of course the Midlands is really at the heart of the new HS2 network, and the opportunities therefore for companies in the Midlands will be immense. So thank you for inviting me. I know the restrictions that come into force today will have a huge impact on business and industry up and down the country. However, I'm hopeful that HS2 will be able to provide some certainty and some stability at what is a very difficult and challenging time. In April this year, HS2 Limited issued notice to proceed. And whilst that was a technical milestone, it was a huge vote of confidence in the industry to get on and start the delivery of phase 1 of the HS2 network between Birmingham and London. This gave thousands of construction workers and businesses across the country confidence. It protected jobs, and it meant that we could truly get on with delivering this transformational project. And now, with construction underway, HS2 and its supply chain is already supporting more than 13,000 jobs, including 400 apprenticeships. And there are thousands more to come. HS2 Limited and its major contractors expect to recruit up to 22,000 jobs over the coming months and years, and as they build the first phase of the railway between Birmingham and London. In fact, HS2's main works contractor in the West Midlands, the Balfour Beatty Vichy joint venture, along with its supply chain partners, has said it expects to be one of the biggest recruiters in the West Midlands over the next 2 years, with up to 7,000 skilled jobs required to complete its section of the HS2 route. And this is before we even hit peak construction. It's estimated that when we have all the different phases under construction at the same time, this will support over 30,000 jobs, including around 2,000 new apprenticeships. And of course, that is good news for businesses right across the Midlands and beyond. But it's not just big construction companies that are set to benefit. It is predicted that HS2 phase 1 will itself create 400,000 supply chain contract opportunities. An estimated 95% of those are expected to be won by UK-based businesses, and 2/3 are expected to be won by SMEs. So far, more than 420 companies across the East and West Midlands have won contracts to become HS2 suppliers, supporting jobs among small, medium and large businesses in the region. With 3 planned stations at Birmingham Curzon Street, interchange in Solihull and the East Midlands hub, the Midlands is literally the centre of the HS2 network. HS2 is of course headquartered in Birmingham, and whilst out on visits and through conversations with the region's leaders, I can see the impact the project is already having on the area around Curzon Street and interchange, and the impact it stands to have on the area around Toton. Across the region, organisations and businesses are working hard to maximise the opportunities that HS2 stands to offer. For example, HS2 Limited is working with stakeholders around interchange to maximise the impacts of construction and to ensure that land used to build the railway can be released early for development plans published by the Urban Growth Company and Arden Cross Limited in Solihull. But turning to innovation, as the Prime Minister said himself, HS2 is at the heart of our plans to build back better. Not just in creating thousands of jobs and providing security, but in the way we deliver, using the most up-to-date, innovative and green construction techniques in order to minimise our carbon footprint and speed up the delivery of major projects. And it's our construction in the Midlands, which is at the heart of this. And HS2, I'm proud to say, is leading the way. Take, for example, the modular bridge installations over the M42 back in August, or over the A446 just last month. Using innovative construction techniques, these were both delivered ahead of schedule, minimising disruption to traffic and making sure HS2 is a good neighbour to local communities. Using traditional construction techniques, these installations would have required several weeks of lane closures. Instead, the bridge over the A446 was installed in 45 minutes, allowing the road to reopen early. And whilst these installations took place in the West Midlands, it wasn't without the help of the neighbours in the east of the region. Lang O'Rourke subsidiary, the Explore manufacturing facility, which I've been proud to visit, of course, is based in Worksop. But I'm pleased to say that the HS2 project doesn't begin and end with bridges. HS2 Limited and its supply chain are actively pursuing cutting-edge ideas across various channels, including through HS2-led challenge competitions and partnerships, working with the UK Catapult Network, and in collaboration with academia. Just a few weeks ago, I visited a site in West London, where I saw some of the world's first solar and hydrogen-powered welfare cabins in use as part of a trial to dramatically cut carbon from HS2 construction sites. And you have seen, some of you may have seen, the Worcestershire company Plinks, which featured on the One Show in the summer, demonstrating its tracking technology being used to ensure HS2 workers can safely distance whilst on site. Whether it's investigating the full potential for 3D printing capability for construction or facilitating the uptake of electrically powered plant, I'm confident that HS2 will continue to lead and leave an innovation legacy for the UK construction sector. As we look ahead, HS2 will, with the Midlands at its heart, bring our biggest cities closer together, boost productivity, and play a key role in achieving our transition to carbon net zero by 2050. But its transformational potential goes even further. As the spine of Britain's future greener transport network, HS2 offers a once-in-a-generation opportunity for innovation in construction and beyond. And it's this project's supporters who we need to continue to champion and fight for this project. At a time when the public finances will be more constrained than ever, we have to continue to make the case for investments such as HS2. So I would urge you all to continue to make the case and demonstrate what a hugely transformational project this will be for your sector. Because by creating thousands of apprenticeships and tens of thousands of skilled jobs, HS2 will fire up economic growth and help rebalance opportunity across this country, which we need now and also in the future. It is truly at the heart of our plans to build back better. So I'm delighted to have joined the conference today. Thank you, Andrew, for inviting me. I hope you all have a successful session. If there is time, I'm more than happy to answer one or two questions, but that's up to you, Andrew. If you want to move on with your agenda, that's also fine with me.
No, I think, Andrew, if you don't mind, whilst we've got you in the house, so they say, it would be good. And we do have, I think we could offer that. So may I open that up then to those in the house? If you've got any questions for the Minister, would you kindly type them in the Q&A box, and then I'll bring them up. Whilst I'm waiting for you to do that, I have to say that what you've had to say is inspiring. So thank you for that. And I'm delighted to say that Constructing Excellence Midlands has got working theme groups in pretty much all of the areas that you mentioned, around sustainability and innovation, around offsite and digital. What we've got a presentation coming up later. We're going to deliver two new how-to guides. One around best practice procurement. So I'd like to get your thoughts on that ahead of our launch. And also we're going to launch a guide on mental health and well-being, which, let's be honest, is new to many companies in our sector. Just wondered if you could give us your thoughts on those two subjects, procurement and health and well-being, while I wait for the questions to pour in.
No problem at all. So on procurement, obviously at the moment we're going through a period of transition as we have Brexit at the end of this year, and we leave the transition period. The Cabinet Office are in the process of drawing up new procurement rules for the country. They could include a range of different things, but it's worth us all kind of reflecting on what the rules currently are, but also how they could change. There is a lot of pressure for us to think more about how we can be more sustainable, how we can be more environmentally responsible through our procurement, how we can better reflect social value. I don't think anybody thinks that Brexit is an opportunity that we should just go for British jobs and limit all the contracts to only be won by UK firms. But we need to recognise things like embedded carbon and various other things. So this is something Theodore Agnew in the Cabinet Office is leading on. I'm hoping that it's something that we'll be consulting on fairly soon. But what I'm proud to say about HS2, and certainly if anybody differs with this view, please contact me, because I'm very keen to hear different people's views. But with HS2, we've tried to engage with the supply chain as early as possible to try and give people a sight of the opportunities that are coming up. And because of that, we're proud to say that so far, 98% of contracts have been won by British businesses. And I was speaking, I'm from East Lancashire, and I was speaking to my own Chamber of Commerce this week, alongside HS2 officials, again, talking about the opportunities for East Lancashire engineering firms to get involved in the delivery of this project. So at the moment we have procurement rules, but again, there is more things that government and companies can do to ensure that we are supporting SMEs in regions across the country. So I'm very keen to look at that. Again, as I say, very open to ideas. So if anybody has further ideas of what we could do better, you can find my contact details online. Please drop me an email. After this session, I'm really keen to listen and learn. And on mental health, obviously this is a massive issue for everybody in every industry. And yes, as a country, we have been too slow in recognising how important mental health is and ensuring that mental health has full parity of esteem with physical health. So anything any different sector can do to more closely look at mental health and supporting our colleagues, and we all have colleagues who suffer with mental health, whether we know it or not, we need to all work together on that to ensure that we are supported as possible.
Okay, thank you for that. I've had a question come in on the chat box. If you could, ladies and gentlemen, post the questions in the Q&A section, that would be helpful, but I've just uncovered this one. So this is from Darren, Andrew. How is the government encouraging public sector clients to make development decisions and to support them to make positive decisions? I'm not sure I asked that very well. It was the way it was written. How is the government encouraging public sector clients to make development decisions and support them to make positive decisions?
So I think, well, if this is again going on the kind of procurement ground, I think, as I say, we're looking at the procurement rules as to how we can better support the industry through that. We're hoping to publish, clearer pipelines of upcoming work. As I say, the changes to procurement rules will be able to better reflect social value and other things, which hopefully means that more British companies will be able to win work on major infrastructure projects. I think for me, in my portfolio, the key thing is that pipeline, giving certainty to the sector as to what's coming up. It's great that phase 1 is now under construction. Phase 2A from the West Midlands to Crewe, we expect to get royal assent hopefully early in the new year. It keeps on slipping back a few weeks, but we hope to then get 2A under construction soon. I've just launched a consultation on now the western leg, taking the route up into Manchester. So I hope to be able to give the sector long-term certainty as to knowing in terms of the high-speed rail project what is coming up. But we need to give people certainty on other issues. There are other significant rail investments which are needed in the Midlands and in the North, and we need to set out how the government are going to take those projects forward. And that's at the core, really, of the integrated rail plan, which we're hoping within the next few weeks to be able to give some more colour on as to how we're going to sequence some of these major investments.
I have to say, I don't know whether you'd agree with me, Andrew, but I think the way the construction industry has come together in the last 7 or 8 months during the coronavirus is probably the most impressive I've ever seen in my 40 years. We're proving that we can be integrated and collaborative and speak with one voice. And interestingly, we've got Simon Rawlinson as our next speaker to give us an update on the roadmap to recovery. But and I have another question, if I may. This is from Uma, our chair. Is there anything we can do to help SMEs work efficiently and effectively on big infrastructure projects?
I mean, if I use the example of this week, there are very few companies so far in my region, in East Lancashire, who have contracts with HS2. My part of the country is dominated by civil aerospace, and therefore we've been decimated by COVID-19. And the expectations from the likes of Boeing and Airbus are that the civil aviation market will not recover for 3 to 5 years. It could be longer. So companies in my part of the world are now looking rapidly to diversify. So I think we need to, HS2 and others, need to go out to the supply chain, even those who traditionally haven't been in our supply chain, who haven't ever been involved in, say, rail supply, and say, look, this is what we are looking for. These are the kind of contract opportunities that you can win. A company in Bolton has just won the contract to supply the fire doors to the tunnels on the HS2 network. That is a £36 million contract, which will lead to a new factory being built in Bolton. And, again, not near the line of route, but this is a company which is benefiting from a significant contract. If we give SMEs enough sight of the kind of contracts that we are going to be looking to award and the specifications, there are many, I'm sure out there, many talented businesses who will come forward with really competitive proposals for how they could fulfill those requirements. But we've got to give them that pipeline. We've got to tell them what we're looking for. Otherwise, unfortunately, because, again, if you look at high-speed rail globally, the French and the Germans and the Spanish and even the Italians in Europe have built significant high-speed rail networks, of course, the Japanese and the Chinese. So there are lots of international companies very keen to win work to deliver for HS2 Limited. So we need to do what we can to work with our local supply chains to ensure that SMEs know what we're going to be offering, they know when we're going to be offering it, and they know the kind of requirements that we're going to be looking for, so they can come in with really competitive bids and win that work.
Thank you. And I think perhaps we have a role within CE Midlands for everyone listening that's in the clubs. We've got 6 regional clubs across the Midlands, which directly impact SMEs and involve SMEs. So I think maybe we have a role that we can play in terms of communication and dissemination of knowledge. So thank you. I've got 2 more questions. One from Peter Lakin, who says, links to the north are as important, if not more, for Birmingham than London. So could you update on the prospectus for phase 2B, please?
Yes, so I completely agree. I'm Manchester born and bred and represent a Lancashire constituency, so completely agree with connecting to the north. It's far more important than connecting to the south. So unfortunately, the decisions taken before my time mean that the railway is starting in the south. But we are very keen to move forward with the northern sections as quickly as possible. Obviously, phase 1 we can get under construction now because we had royal assent on the bill back in 2007. Phase 2A, taking the line up to Crewe, we'll hopefully have royal assent early next year, which means again we can get on with construction pretty soon. The eastern and the western legs, taking the line up to Manchester and Leeds, are both subject to the integrated rail plan. So at the moment, the government is looking at exactly how they should be delivered, how they should be sequenced. There is a very legitimate argument, I think, for breaking them down into smaller pieces of legislation, because the legislation, the planning permission for phase 1 took 3 years to get through Parliament, and for 2A is also going to take 3 years to get through Parliament. We need to be able to do that quicker. We need to be able to look at taking time out of the kind of bureaucracy that runs behind actually getting shovels in the ground. So I've already said that the western leg, taking the line from Crewe into Manchester, will be its own separate bill, and we're doing a design refinement consultation on that. Because of the integrated rail plan, we have paused work on the eastern leg up to Leeds, but I am very keen to see the eastern leg delivered. Obviously, the National Infrastructure Commission, who are currently doing the work behind the integrated rail plan, they will express an opinion on that soon. But I am very keen to see the full Y network built, because actually, if you look at the journey time reductions, the biggest savings on the entire network will be between Leeds and Birmingham, not between Birmingham and London or Manchester and London. It will be bringing the North and the Midlands closer together.
Thank you. And I've got one more question. I'm surprised it took as long as it did to come in, and not surprisingly, it's from somebody that's signed themselves anonymous. Why has the budget for HS2 increased so much?
So a combination of factors, and I could give you the really long answer, but I'll try and give you the 60-second answer. There is a combination of things. This is a project that has been running for 11 years. HS2 Limited was founded in 2009. There was huge uncertainty at the start of the project, as there is on any mega project like this. During its passage through Parliament, huge amounts of costs were then added in. We are now tunnelling underneath most of the Chilterns, for example, which came in as part of the parliamentary petitioning process. Things like that have added significant cost into the process. Also, you know, again, actually, if you look at the budget, if you look at the impact of inflation on the figures on the initial budget from 11 years ago and now, a significant chunk of the cost increases is simply, you know, inflation over those years. The government is very clear that we're going to keep on top of costs of HS2. I've just published the first 6 monthly report, which shows that we are operating since notice to proceed and since the Prime Minister gave the go-ahead in February, we are operating within the budget. There is £800 million of emerging cost pressures, but that is cost pressures which would be entirely contained actually within the company's own delegated contingency for such a massive project. You know, projects like this, there is always uncertainty, and at the moment there is still significant cost uncertainty over how much 2B, the western and eastern legs, would cost, because again, they're very much still just lines on the map. But if you look at phase 1, the majority of the land has now been purchased. The main work civil contracts have been awarded. We are about to, in early next year, award the rolling stock contracts and the systems contracts. So you'll get to a position where the majority of the work has been contracted or is about to be contracted, or certainly has prices from the market. And therefore, I would expect the cost certainty around phase 1 of the railway line to be much more assured than for the other sections of the line, where, as I say, it's still very much in a very early embryonic design phase of delivery. So, you know, there have been challenges. One of the reasons why I'm the dedicated minister is to ensure that we don't keep on seeing cost escalation. It is top of my agenda, and I have monthly meetings. We have monthly cross-government meetings now with the board of HS2 to ensure that they are held to account on this. So it's not just me. We've got representatives from the Treasury, the Cabinet Office and others. It's the first time a project's been run like this since the Olympics. That was the last time we had a cross-government kind of oversight committee. So we really are trying to get a grip of this project and ensure that it delivers on time and on budget.
Andrew, thank you so much for answering those questions. Thank you for giving of your valuable time. We realise how busy you must be in these difficult pandemic times, so thank you for that. What you had to say was not only very interesting, particularly for my Midlands colleagues, but I think also, if you like, a call to arms for us as CE Midlands in terms of what we could and should do going forward. So thank you for that. Please pass on my thanks to your team for organising it, and I wish you well for the rest of the day.
Pleasure, and I wish everyone well, and thank you once again for all you have done during 2020. It has been an incredibly challenging year, but I would just echo your comments that the construction sector really has stepped up to the plate and really has delivered, and you can all be really proud of what you've done over what has been the most challenging year any of us could have possibly imagined. So thank you.